Welcome to Two Millennials and Mom, where we bring you engaging conversations and respectful disagreement across the social spectrum.
Injected with the quirks of everyday life.
Curl up as we navigate the complexities of this modern world with all the humor and warmth we can muster.
And the occasional gentle ribbing. We're glad you're here. Happy listening.
Hello. Welcome to Two Millennials and Mom. How are you guys today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Cole?
Hanging in there.
Sweet.
We need you there.
Yeah, I was going to say, please don't go anywhere else. Hang in here with us because we definitely need you. So we have some terms that we're going to talk about today. Call it a buzzword battleground, a culture clash, or just the internet doing what it does best. Today, we're talking about three of the most charged and sometimes misused concepts in modern discourse. The term woke, the manosphere, and the whole red pill, blue pill rabbit hole. What do those terms actually mean? Where did they come from? And how did they go from fringe philosophies and pop culture metaphors to hot button topics taking over cable news and social media comment sections? In this episode, we're untangling the history and the evolution of each, how woke shifted from a call for awareness to a political lightning rod, why the manosphere has become an online ecosystem for some scary and angry corners of masculinity, and what red pill versus blue pill even means anymore. Whether you've heard these terms tossed around without much context, or you found yourself deep in a Reddit thread wondering how the hell you got here, we're breaking it down with our multi-generational lens, asking how did these terms shape the way that we see the world, gender, power, and each other. Now, this one might ruffle a few feathers, but we promise we're here to ask real questions, laugh a little, and leave you thinking. We're also here to learn. So let's dive in.
So I think all of those things were valid. I mean, I was reading an article and I had never heard the term manosphere, and I opened it up and man, I felt like I'd gone down a rabbit hole. It was a very scary place on Reddit. So that kind of started this. And then I think we have this thing where woke means different things to different people, but it's used so freely that I feel like we could really benefit just from fleshing that out some.
Yeah, I think we should start there because, like you said, depending on who uses it, woke could have a completely different meaning and entirely different intentions. So, like, if you're someone who thinks of woke as being positive, to me, that means that you are aware of the situation. You're aware of, hey, these are the falsehoods that are being told to society. This is the reality of what is happening, and you are educated on those matters. That's, to me, what like the original intent of the term woke was supposed to be, but it has developed into
a dirty word.
Well, it depends on who
insult.
uses it.
Yeah, definitely an insult.
If a Republican congressperson calls you woke, then yeah, it's probably an insult. But there's been expanded because not everyone who gets called woke or calls themselves woke is actually educated on the topics. And so now there's this whole sentiment from the other side about this woke mind virus. And in some cases, I can see what they're talking about, because you'll have someone come in and they're representing these ideas that are just, to me, not reality. They're the reality that you want, but not the reality that is.
Which I think is where we kind of get into the red pill versus blue pill side of it all.
Yeah. And so those two are pretty closely connected. And then talking about the manosphere is, to me, the same thing as this quote unquote woke mind virus for the other side.
So define what you mean when you say woke mind virus. What do you mean by that?
I think the general discourse is that people who are assigned to this woke box, being subjected to the woke mind virus, is this echo chamber of ideologies where, like, it's beyond preaching tolerance, it's violent tolerantism, where if you are not tolerant enough, you are the bad guy, because if you don't agree with everything in my list of ideologies, you are the enemy.
Okay.
So if you speak out against abortion, you're a bad guy. If you speak out against anything to do with
Tariffs,
LGBT
immigration.
or trans ideology or anything like that, you are the bad guy.
Gotcha.
And there's no call for mutual understanding. It is just, if you disagree with anything on my list of things to agree with, we can't even have a discussion.
Which I think goes back to some of the things like that Cole has mentioned in the past. We may disagree on points 1, 2, and 3. We may have some semblance of agreement on 4, 5, and 6, but 7, 8, 9, and 10, we're completely aligned, whatever that breakdown is. And so I saw a deal the other day called 10 Symptoms of the Woke Mind Virus. You read books, you don't ban or burn them. You embrace science. You're willing to change your mind when new information becomes available. You understand that most issues aren't black and white. You believe in true equality for all people. You like to share. You embrace cooperation. You respect others' rights. You believe culture and the arts has value, and you care for the planet and all of its life. And I thought that was such an interesting kind of list. And listening to Cole talk about it, I think that you're right in many ways. If you are not 100% on board with all of these topics, you're the enemy. And that's a really tough position, I think, to start a conversation.
Well, you're
And,
not going to start a conversation with that.
I need to poke a couple of holes at that, because there are some things that I have seen by people who would be called woke that aren't following the science. They're not listening to it. They say they are because they're listening to the science that they want to listen to. But that's kind of the weird part about science, is there's a lot of disagreement until something is proven.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't know that some of those topics are ones that I'm really willing to get super deep into on this episode.
Sure.
But I think what I want to do here is just pump the brakes a little bit, or ask everyone to pump the brakes a little bit and say, hey, if your beliefs are driving animosity towards other people, maybe you need to go and reevaluate your beliefs and your values a little bit. Because if it is, you don't agree with me, you're the enemy, you've eliminated any room for compromise or understanding. And that, to me, kind of takes you to the opposite of what you're trying to get to,
which is
a peaceful society where everyone has a level of equality and tolerance for everyone else.
Okay, here's my struggle. We have always had elements, particularly in our society, of things that we disagree with. You can go back to segregation and what is there, and even the tenets of that still hang. You can look at Christianity and some issues there. So how do you come to a place where there's a level of tolerance and a level of, let me think about this for a minute, being willing enough to say, I hear you. Right now, I disagree with you. Let me hear why you believe that way. How do we get
I
there?
think you have to do just that.
Well, and I think that the other part that I really struggle with is, while that's absolutely the direction that I want us to be working in and moving in, hey, I don't understand you. Help me understand. Explain this to me. Let me do some research and better understand where you're coming from and your perspective. I don't think that that's necessarily the motivation behind a large group of our population right now. I'm right, you're wrong. That's the end of it. You don't believe what I believe, so screw you. I feel like, especially in some instances, there's no coming back from that.
But I think for normal people, it's a little bit less so. Sure, there are some groups within our population that are like that, but I think that they're the minority, to be perfectly honest with you. I just think that they're the loud minority.
Maybe you're right, but I think that minority, even if they are, is growing. And I think that calling them the loud minority is accurate too, because they're certainly loud. I mean, but think about all of the points of contention in our history and where loudness has gotten you, where loudness has gotten your cause. hey, we women, we want the right to vote. We're going to make a big, huge stink about this. Hey, we want equal rights and we want to do away with segregation or slavery or whatever it may be. Hey, we want gay marriage to be a thing. We want to be able to love whoever we love. And all of that noise has turned into something, even when it was small noise. It has been amplified and made greater. And I think that in a lot of ways we've found some truth in those things. Okay, hold on. Equal rights is important. Women should be able to vote or have credit cards, or, you know, people who happen to be gay should be able to get married just like the rest of us too. That's reasonable. What reason are we going to find in you're wrong because you don't believe like me? What reason are we going to find in that noise? What is going to come out of that? That's the part that I'm most scared about.
Well, I mean, this one I think is, you can chalk a lot of this up to media narrative at this point. It is specifically designed to have two completely opposite sides that cannot find any discourse in the middle, because if you do, your team loses. If you give any ground, your team has lost. But the teams are made up. The teams that we're representing are owned by the same person. It would be like an owner in an NFL game owning two teams and pitting them against each other every week. Like, I mean, really?
Yeah. So I guess my question then becomes, what's the goal? What is the end goal? Because the owner of the two NFL teams, he wins and loses either way.
Right,
sure,
but he
there's-
generates a ton of income by fueling the feud between those two teams.
That's what I was going to say. It comes down to money.
So it's not about winning or losing. It's about money.
Well, yeah, because the more money you have, the more you've won. But you cannot let the people watching know that that's what it's about. It has to be ideological for them to continue to battle each other and represent their side to generate that income, to keep you in that position of power where you continue.
So where does that leave us with all of this? I mean, so yeah, that's the scary part. That's exactly my fear in all of this. Like, you've got all of these media conglomerates and media sources who are coming in and encouraging that head-to-head battle, the constant division. Where do we go from here? What is winning? And so I just feel like
Depends on who you are.
I
What
guess-
is winning for who?
Because when you're sitting there saying that, what I'm thinking is that one of the teams has to stop playing.
Can they? Or do you just hire more people to get on the team and keep going?
I don't know.
I get what you're saying there, and you saying that makes me think that maybe my analogy wasn't the best one, but it was
I think it was
simple
really
and
good.
available. It's not the teams that have to stop playing. It's the fans that have to stop cheering for the teams. And that's a lot harder to do.
Okay. So when you asked who is we, who are we talking about winning here? And I guess my goal, my hope is that it's we, the American people. We, the society of America.
Right, but if you're rooting for Team Blue and I'm rooting for Team Red, then my winning is the red team winning, and your winning is the blue team winning. And in the grand scheme of things, the red team and blue team are the same team. They're players. They can switch in and out because they're on the same roster. They're owned by the same conglomerate, whatever you will. There is no red team, blue team, but I am so passionate about wearing my red jersey, and you're so passionate about wearing your blue jersey, that whoever is wearing red jerseys today better be the better team, or I'm going to be really upset, and it's going to be your fault because you wore a blue jersey.
Right. Like, I guess this makes me feel just so depressed, but
Yeah.
is there anybody else out there who wants to zoom out and say, hey, I don't want to cheer for these teams. I want to cheer for the betterment of society. Hey, I don't want to sit here and continue to battle head to head for somebody else to win, for the corporation to get the money, for your team to win or my team to win. I want to zoom out and say, what actually makes sense for our society? How do we become a better, more productive society as a whole, to where, because I don't want the red team or the blue team. I don't necessarily want either of them to win. I want the people to win. I sure don't want one team to win over the
red
other.
Team and the blue team. Because here's the thing. Most people aren't wearing a red jersey or a blue jersey. But because there are people who are wearing a red jersey and there are people who are wearing a blue jersey, it is generating income for the owner of that two teams that's really just one team regardless. And so as long as people keep wearing those jerseys, they're going to have some source of income. And as long as they have income, then they can keep collecting fans. They can keep running advertisements to get more fans, even when people start selling their jerseys and get rid of it.
So let's kind of step back a little bit. So I did some research on the term woke. This all started for me because I saw a thread with somebody talking about a conversation that they had had. A white woman had called a black man woke, and his response was to ask her to define that. What does that mean for you? What does that look like for you? And she fumbled and fumbled and fumbled and couldn't come to an answer, couldn't come to a definition of what it was. All of a sudden she got distracted and was like, I have to go to a meeting, and never brought it back up again. They worked together, never brought it back up again. And so it was all of these people kind of weighing in. This is what woke is. This is what it means. This is where it came from. And you could really clearly see kind of those colored jerseys. Got it. That's what color that person's jersey is. Oh, got it. That person is wearing this colored jersey based on how they responded to what woke is. And so I want to step back a little bit to the original kind of early roots of it. So its first known usage was in Black communities in the 1930s and 40s. It very much stems from the African American vernacular English. In 1962, the New York Times had an article that defined woke as being aware of racial injustice. And then in the civil rights movement, activists started saying stay woke as a call to remain vigilant against systemic oppression. And so it was originally intended to mean stay aware, stay alert, pay attention.
About injustice.
And oppression. And so then it became more mainstream in the early 2010s with the Black Lives Matter movement and with LGBTQ plus rights and social justice movements. Think Trayvon Martin. I mean, for the last 15 or 20 years, it's kind of started trickling back in and becoming more and more used.
Yeah, but even as you say that, that's a shift in the definition. It's no longer be aware of injustice. It's more look what this injustice has caused. That's a difference.
Sure. And so I think that the intention, from everything that I've gathered, the intention of it was to be good. Pay attention. Stay aware. Look what this has done and what we need to be watching over here, what we need to be fighting over here. And then in about 2016 to especially to 2020, there was a big shift when it became politicized. And conservative backlash had a huge part in that, in weaponizing woke as an insult. If you're paying attention to those things, if you are watching that, you're woke, and turned it into a very detrimental, negative insult. And so then, Cole, you talked about media and the narrative of all of that, the role that the media and politicians took in redefining that word and changing it from the good intentions of, hey, make sure you're alert and aware, turned into how you were wrong and how you were ignorant. And that's the part that just kind of scares me. And I think that, I mean, we've talked about it on this podcast on several occasions. The divide in our country right now is greater than I've ever seen it in my lifetime. I won't say ever because I haven't been around for the whole thing, but is greater than I've ever seen it in my lifetime. And that could be based on race or gender or sexual orientation, all of those things that so much of our government has said, hey, we're not judging on your sexual orientation or your race or your religion or any of that. I feel like we've kind of gone the exact opposite. And it's like, we are only judging on those things now. So go sit in your little bucket and we will decide when we like you, whether you're good or bad, whether you're right or wrong, and how much power we're going to allow you to have. And it's scary to me.
Or say that's just frightening. So I'm going to say right now, I'm going to choose not to use that term because I think it's just so
Politically charged.
But it's the definition just varies. And I like words better that if I say, black, it means black, not gray, and there's 15, or not green, and there's teal and aqua and holly. And, I like words that are more defined. So I'm going to choose not to use that word because I think it's divisive. I think it's undefined or not well defined, not consistently defined, maybe what I want to say.
What does that mean? If you say that you're not going to use that word anymore because it's divisive, but then what? What comes next?
Well, I think it's a choice on my part to not use it because I do feel like it's undefined, but that I have a responsibility if somebody comes back to me and uses that word to stop and say, what does that mean to you? Get that definition from them so that I can clarify for myself if that's, have I just been insulted? Did they mean it insulting? How are they using it? So that we know if we're, and I would do the same thing. I would encourage them not to use that word if our definitions are far apart. And I would be willing to say, I've chosen not to use that word. I don't want to be a part of that.
Okay. I think that some really interesting conversations could come from that.
I've been trying to have some of those conversations. I had one yesterday with a friend because I'm still looking for some people to define for me why they believe what they believe. And I'm frustrated. I'll say that much. I'm frustrated that I cannot get a solid definition. So
I think part of that stems from people not understanding the definition of what they stand for. And I think that is exacerbated by the content that we consume. I mean, I was watching a guy this week on YouTube, a guy that I've watched for a long time, and he started talking, and I was like, but what are you really saying? In the long run, I think what he was saying is that he just doesn't care and it is what it is. And in some circumstances, I get that. But in others, I don't think that is wise or enough.
Right.
I don't think that we can afford not to care.
I agree.
But I would also say that I think there are some situations where we can't afford to care.
And I was going to say, there's so many things that need to be done and need to be clarified that you have to choose on a daily, almost an hourly basis, what you're going to stand up for, what deserves your attention. And I think it's really hard. And maybe that's part of this whole thing is of getting people where they don't know where they stand, are too tired, or feel like they're spinning around too much. Do I focus on this or do I focus on, wait, maybe, which way am I supposed to go? And it just keeps us spinning and divisive.
I think that's the point.
Yeah. So, Cal, any more on woke?
No, hit me with the manosphere. I'm kind of scared.
Well, the manosphere, like I said, when we started, I was reading an article and it mentioned the manosphere, and I said, what is that? And I think I even asked both of y'all, and y'all didn't give me something that I just went, oh, that's it. So I Googled it. And I went to a Reddit thread, and the Reddit thread didn't give me the first part. It just kind of gave me, the trailing conversation that was going on. And it was a large number of men, I would say young men from the sounds of them, who talked about how they had to get out of the manosphere, that it was just too debilitating, that it had really messed them up, that it had taken them months. And so I still didn't really know what the manosphere was supposed to do. So I went, did a little bit more research. And what I came up with is that real definition is it's a collection of websites, blogs, online forums promoting masculinity, misogyny, opposition to feminism. It includes men's rights activists, incels. That's a typo on my part. And a group called Men Going Their Own Way, Magto. And so that was kind of, eye-opening. And so to keep going, it's a general belief that society is biased towards men due to feminism. It's really based on a hatred of men and men's reaction to that. And that's where the reference for taking the pill came. So this is my take on this. So we have a group of men who are feeling that they're not who they're supposed to be, and they're basing it on feminism. And so they're reacting to that by trying to become bigger men, tougher men, more
Superman.
defined,
Superman.
but that the pendulum has swung so far over that they don't even want to be a part or share with women because they're so offended by women. So I'm going to take this round because I feel like this is kind of the same way with woke. If we decide that men are X and women are Y, and everything in our book responds to that one piece of evidence, facts, knowledge, if we do that, then we miss for every group all of the other
Nuances,
shades of gray within that group. So at the risk of sounding awful, I'm going to say this. If I want to look at Black people, Black Americans, and say they're all poor, they're all dumb, and they're all out to get me because of the slave trade 100 years, that is such a teeny tiny part of that group of people. There are amazing Black men and Black women. I have known some of them. So I know this to be a fact that there are amazing people. You can't look in history and not identify Black people that have contributed significantly to society. So if you just go with that one little piece,
decision.
and maybe this is the story I need to tell. My grandparents grew up pre-segregation, really, and anyone who wasn't white wasn't really well accepted. They weren't allowed to live in the same area of town. They weren't allowed to associate. And so my grandparents had a mindset of what a Black person was or what a Hispanic person was. My dad, on the other hand, worked in an industry where his coworkers were Black and Hispanic and white and were amazing men. And those amazing men, my dad brought into my grandparents' lives. And I can tell you very specifically, there was one gentleman who was Hispanic that my grandparents would have died for. And for some reason in their mind, he wasn't the Hispanic that they knew. He was different. And so if you just go with that one definition, you lost exactly who that man was. He was a loving father and a great husband and a good worker and funny.
I think that is the basis of this entire issue. Is there is so much information bombarding each of us constantly all of the time that it's too much to process for our dumb little primate brains. And so we just get stuck in this trap of overgeneralizing everything. All men are trash. All men are garbage. All women are predatory. All women only want X, Y, or Z.
All redheads are fiery.
Yeah,
All blondes are dumb.
dumb. Yeah, all of that. I think there's so much overgeneralization, and now that overgeneralization and divisiveness has been weaponized to
That makes
keep
sense.
us angry at each other instead of angry at the things that we should be angry at.
Oh, yeah. I completely agree.
So I think we really have to stop and say wait, what's this conversation about? And it's super hard to call people that you're talking to on the carpet to say, wait, why did you say that? Why did you say it that way? Because this is kind of how I heard it. I think we're going to have to go get that attorney, Callie, out of, where's that little
Jefferson
town?
Fisher.
Yes, I think we're going to have to go get his book so that we can learn how to say things right back to people. Is that really what you meant to say? Are you
Right.
really saying that to me without being, totally offensive, but really asking the question at the same time? And it's going to be exhausting
I was going
Yeah,
to say,
I
I
because
think
of
it's
think
going to
where
be
we
a lot of
live.
work.
the tricky part about that is that not everyone is willing to analyze their interactions like that.
This is true. And I can say that simply because I have spent the last several weeks trying to get people, they'll say something to me. I had a friend that said, I really believe Trump loves this country and wants to do what's best for it. And I said, can you tell me why you think that? And he,
I just do.
yeah,
Nothing to back it up.
no. Or, what was wrong with Kamala? And people cannot give me that definition. And so I feel like I'm having conversations with people that never go anywhere because there's nothing to be said.
I think that there's a bit of an epidemic of that particular thing that has taken
Sentiment.
root in us. Sentiment, yes, that has taken root in so many of us. I've decided that my opinion is fact and I can't hear anything else. That's all that there is to it. I don't have to base anything on the truth. I don't have to base anything on reality. I've just decided. I've decided that all women are gold diggers and all men are scarier than the bear. And I've decided that all people of this race or this ethnicity or this religion or this sexual orientation are all this. And just being okay and being accepting of that. And we have decided to stop taking any one thing at face value. This is what I know. This is what I've decided. And that's just the end of it. And I think that that's wrong.
Well, it's certainly not conducive to community or kindness
or growth or learning.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. The manosphere was very scary to me. And maybe that's because I know a lot of really good men who I think believe this woman in my life has value. And it's not limited to what I think. But if I give her, I would say your dad has given me the opportunity to grow and to be what I wanted to be, not held me back and said, no, you can only fit in this little round hole. This is the only one that fits you. He's been willing to say, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And I think we need to be doing that with everyone. And I know that's really hard. And if you've got people who've never thought about what they want to be, and I mean, that can come from lots of different places. Maybe they had a background that never gave them that opportunity, but that doesn't mean you can't come into the age that you are today and learn something new.
Sure.
I think all of this gets exacerbated even more because, and we're going to talk about red pill and blue pill here in a minute. But one thing that I have seen as I am scrolling through YouTube or TikTok or Facebook or whatever it is it's all these examples of, oh, this is why you should be red pilled or this is why you should be blue pilled. And every single time, it's not an intelligent conversation. It's not this two-way street. It is just a parade of the worst examples you could possibly find to represent either case. And it demonizes one side and glorifies the other. And it's on both sides. And it happens constantly where you disagree with me. So I'm going to put you in this situation to either make you look stupid or the people that I'm going to bring in to represent your side are the worst possible examples, or the people who are the least well equipped to try and articulate this side's point of view, and it demonizes that point of view.
Well, and again, Cole, it's on one point. If you take, I almost wish we had to, if you took and said, okay, you have to tell me 10 things about this person. And if you gave me those 10 things, and Cole, you've said this before, the majority of things we agree on. There are some on either side that we don't agree on, but the majority we as Americans agree on. But if you took those 10 and said, I want to look at these are how I'm going to decide who I think you are, that's one thing. But if you just take one thing and that's what you decide on, you've left the other 9 out that may be where the real value is.
I think it's even more than that. I think to get more clicks, to get more viewers, the intention and the action that is taken is to not find those people who agree on 9 out of 10 things and talk about the 10th thing. It's to go and find the people who would disagree on 10 out of 10 things and just throw them at each other as hard as you can to see how big of a splatter you can make.
Because that's what gets clicks.
Because that is, for some reason, is what we're driven to interact with.
All coming back down to the internet and my friend saying what a demon that is.
I think it's a big part of the problem.
I would agree.
Okay. Talk red pill, blue pill. I know this is a Matrix reference.
Yeah, so it originally comes from the Matrix, where Neo is given the choice to take the red pill to recognize the undesirable, dirty, bad truth of reality, or he can take the blue pill and continue to exist in this Matrix make-believe monotonous world and not see the true reality.
So if I remember that show right, he was in this. He didn't know that he was in the Matrix, but things were happening and he was reacting to them. So at some point they came back to him, I'm assuming towards the end of the movie, and said, well, now that you know you have a choice, do you want to go here or do you want to go there? And which way did he choose?
Well, he took the red pill or there wouldn't be a movie.
Was it at the beginning?
I honestly don't remember. I want to say it's about
recall.
halfway through.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, and so in modern internet speak, being red pilled is like the traditionally political rights version of woke. It's that you see what is really happening. You see the reality behind everything. And I think it's alarmist. Like, I don't know what other term to use there.
A fantasy.
Can you give me like a quick 2 or 3 point perspective on somebody in that camp? This is what I believe about this, or this. This is what I believe about abortion or politics or paychecks, something along those lines.
I mean, I can give it to you very, very generally, but it's such a broad topic that I don't feel like I'm doing it justice by trying to generalize it like that, because just like woke, red pill could mean something different, because what I perceive as reality and what you perceive as reality are two different things. So you could think you're red pilled and I think you're an idiot, and you could think, and I could think I'm red pilled and you could think I'm an idiot. I mean, for the most part, you're just listening to what other people are saying. You're not developing your own ideas on it.
So just because I'm curious, would you consider any of the 3 of us to be red pilled or blue pilled?
No.
I wish you'd said that a little bit more confident.
Well, here's the thing. It could depend on the topic. There are some things that we agree on and that we feel similarly about, and I think that you perceive clearly. And there are some things, obviously, that we don't think each other are perceiving clearly.
Gotcha.
And that is where these terms, to me, are not sufficient to define that. Kind of like you talking about not wanting to use woke. I feel like because these terms vary so differently from person to person, that they're a really poor terminology to use when you're describing someone. Because here's the thing, if I listen to Joe Rogan and whatever, and Ben Shapiro and whoever else is on that, I could have one set of opinions about a group of things, and everyone who has those same opinions would consider me red pilled. But if you go and listen to 10 other different podcasts that have a different bias, that have a different skew, everyone who agrees with you would think that you're red pilled or woke or whatever it is.
Well, and what I'm hearing is I could be blue pilled on this topic and red pilled on that topic. And
Exactly.
So you really can't tell me that I'm red-pilled, because we're all going to have exceptions to that.
Yeah, and that's the whole problem with this ideology on both sides, is that, well, I heard this from X and I think that they're always right, so you must be wrong about this.
Where the hell did verification of information go out the window? Like,
There's so much of it, it's hard to verify.
Yeah, it's
is it though?
Yeah.
Yeah, Callie, because if it's dependent on what you're hearing, what your algorithm is, what you're watching on TV, and if you think you're watching the truth, you're not verifying that truth. You cannot
That's literally my question. Why are we
know.
not verifying information? Because a fact is still a fact, no matter who misstates it.
Because you
Right,
already.
but a fact doesn't have to be true. A fact just isn't an opinion.
A fact doesn't have to be true?
No, I could say the sky is yellow, and that would be a fact, not an opinion, but it would be an incorrect fact.
It doesn't mean it's the truth. But I'm just saying, you could believe that you are being open and that you are doing your due diligence because you're watching X on, X newsreel. It's just like, I'm going to say, Cole dislikes the fact that I read the New York Times. And so Cole could say I'm blue-pilled, right? Because I read the New York Times. But I tend to think that they get things pretty right compared to a lot of the things that I do juxtapose them against. So I think I'm right. So I'm going to tell you that I'm red-pilled on that.
Whether or not you read it from the New York Times or Fox News, I don't give a shit. Go verify it with other sources, all kinds of factual-based data, statistics, accurate places. Like, it doesn't even matter what it is.
But what we're saying
is, how do you know where you're going is accurate? There's so much information out there. If you watch it on CNN, it's the worst thing that's ever happened, and it's going to be the end of America as we know it. And if you go look at it on Fox, it's the best thing that's ever happened to anyone ever, and it's going to save our country.
It's hopefully somewhere in the middle.
And my whole point is, if all you're doing is watching CNN or Fox, you're completely fucked.
I don't disagree with you, but again, where do you go to verify that information? Are you going to go read the entire bill?
I think that would be a good place to start. Sure. Yeah, I think that would be a great place to start. And maybe you're not willing to go and read the entire bill, which I think would be put on you, metaphorical you, not necessarily you, Cole, in this specific case. But I think that that's put on you. But you could also go look at CNN, go look at Fox News, go look at MSNBC, go look at the BBC, go look at all of these other news sources that are all giving their takes on this is what it means. This is who it's for. And from there, you can use your brain to start putting things together. Okay, everybody's saying that it's going to impact this kind of person. Everybody's saying it's going to do this. So you can start piecing together those facts and start deducing down what it actually is saying. And then from there, you can form your opinions. I think doing all of this against those people is great. That's wonderful. And so you can start putting together your own opinions from that. That's what I'm saying. We've completely given up on verifying information because, well, the potential for it to be skewed is completely, that's just too overwhelming. No, that's freaking lazy.
I think it's really hard.
It is really hard. That doesn't mean it's not worth doing.
Yeah.
Right. But that doesn't mean it's not worth doing to you. Other people may not see it as the same level of importance.
And
do they not have the right to do so?
That doesn't make them smart.
I'm not saying it does. That's not my argument.
But that is my argument. You want to sit here and have a whole conversation on whether or not something is fact or fiction. That's cool. Let's do it. I want to be wrong. I want to be educated. I want to learn. I want to form my own opinions, like all of these things. Oh my gosh, Cole. We saw a deal the other day with this, what is he, like a 20-year-old, 21-year-old kid. He started a podcast and a YouTube channel and all of this, Dean Withers. And he put together a short that was from an episode. And this person is going on and trying to just give him the total and complete shaft. You are not smarter than me. These are quotes, by the way. You are not smarter than me just because you go and read books, just because you went to college, just because you're educated. All you do is spew facts. That doesn't make you smarter than me. That doesn't make you more intelligent. And he was like, wait, What?
Facts don't make you intelligent.
Yeah, facts and knowing facts doesn't make me intelligent. Like you're sitting here talking to a college dropout, and I have never said that college is the only way for someone to become educated. But spewing facts, you're mad at me for spewing facts and telling me that doesn't make me intelligent? That in and of itself is ignorance.
That's knowledge, yeah.
Like, what? So I 100% agree with you that this is not the priority for every single person every single time. It can't be, because you're right. The plethora of information is way too numerous for anybody to go and absorb it all. Unless you're Rain Man, which would be pretty impressive. And I would love to be friends because I could get lots of information from Rain Man too. But if it is something that is important to you or has impact on you, I think that it is wise for you to go and educate yourself and do the hard work, do the heavy lifting, because it has impact on you. And when did we throw out the window the whole, I am not well enough educated on that topic to form an opinion? That's a completely acceptable answer and response. We teach it to our employees. I don't know, but let me go find the answer is a completely acceptable response. But we as a society have decided that we're just going to stick with lies and emotions and call those facts, and that's good enough. And that's wrong. That's so completely wrong. And I just don't understand why, yes, it's hard, but why that should be acceptable.
I don't know that
We're
it's
the only ones
acceptable.
holding ourselves to that standard.
I don't know that it's acceptable. I think it just is. And yes, I would agree that it needs to change, but I think that's just where we are right now.
You know, I've said it in a couple of episodes in the past. If you're not willing to do something about it, don't talk. Don't speak on it. I don't want your opinion. If you're not willing to go and educate yourself and figure out what's going on and figure out how to solve these problems and figure out how to talk intelligently about something, shut your mouth, because anything else, you're just adding to the noise, and the noise isn't productive.
You think that's what people say about us? I hope not.
I hope not.
But I don't know that we've come up with any concrete solutions on things. I feel like our goal is to get some information out there and to try to get people to have conversations, even some hard conversations, and to ask some questions. And so for that, I think that we are successful, but we have not solved any world problems yet.
I don't think that's our goal. I don't think that
Right.
the three of us have the impact on the world to start solving things. But what we can impact is how people look at those topics and look at those conversations and look at their relationships with each other to say, hey, yeah, we feel differently. And yeah, we're going to get in arguments sometimes. But hopefully we can still reconcile after that argument and say, hey, yes, we feel differently about this. And maybe we're not going to be able to move the needle for each other on this specific topic, but maybe we can work together on a different topic and come up and at least work towards maybe even not a solution, but better understanding.
I think we've done that.
Yeah. And I think we all have different examples of that being the case. I mean, sitting here having conversations with people about things we wouldn't normally talk about, having conversations that are hard, having conversations with people that don't agree with us and our stance on it, and hearing them out and listening to what it is that they're saying and becoming more educated ourselves. We all have examples of that. And I think Cole hit the nail like squarely on the head. Our goal isn't to change the world. Our goal is to make you more open-minded to having conversations,
That
even
does
when they're
change the
hard.
world.
And eventually it will.
That does change the world. So I can't remember which one of you had the conversation or saw the conversation with the daters.
Yes. So I saw a conversation of two people, a man and a woman, talking about dating and trying to get to know each other and all of this. And it started off from...
It was chat, right? It was a chat.
It was a text message, yeah.
Yeah.
That was shared online. Hey, how are you? I'm so-and-so. Okay, I like doing this and I like doing that. What do you like doing? I like doing this. I like doing that. All of these things. And then it eventually got down to where they still haven't met in person, haven't spoken, they're just texting, to where she said, okay, but who did you vote for in November? And he made a joke. I wrote in my dog's name. And she was like, ha, 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 no, you didn't. And he's like, yeah, I did. And she responded with, okay, well, this isn't going to work out. And the way that I took that in that moment was, okay, this is really important to her, and she's not willing to settle for somebody who's going to make a joke of it. Well, then the conversation kind of continued. And it started off, I feel like this goes right hand in hand with the manosphere and all of those things that we've been talking about. It started off as him being like, oh, I don't like government, and I think both sides are full of shit, and nothing is perfect, and everything's really bad, and da 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 da. Then it just keeps going, and he just keeps going. And she comes back and she's like, everyone has the right to vote for who they want. I want somebody who shares my values and believes I'm just as worthy as them to have basic human rights. This is not about me being shallow. It's about my own safety and self-preservation. And your vote, while a simplistic data point, is the incredibly nuanced political landscape that we live in, tells me that this would not be a space where I'm valued. It's clear we won't be a good match. I hope you find what you're looking for, but it's not me. And he then proceeds to verbally assault her. You goddamn liberal, da 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 da. You need to get a grip. All of these different things. And she doesn't respond anymore. It's just him going off on this chaos rampage about how she's horrible and the left is horrible and da 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 da. And actually, he voted for Trump and all of this crazy things. And from my perspective, I thought it was so fascinating. I was like, goodness, like it took one little question that he took and ran with, and like she dodged a bullet. And Cole read it almost the exact oppositely. He dodged a bullet. And it was so fascinating to me. And I was like, hold on just a second. Like, he dodged the bullet. He started assaulting her. He started attacking her. And he's the one who dodged the bullet.
Explain, Big.
Yeah.
For me, it's the very beginning of the conversation where he jokingly, she goes, you did not. And he goes, I did, laughing face, laughing face. And then immediately, well, this won't work out. Goodbye. Like, that's the depth that you're willing to get to on this particular topic.
We're not taking any jokes.
Yeah, if you didn't vote for who I think you should have voted for, then we're completely incompatible on every topic ever. I don't even want to converse with you anymore.
I see that too. I can see that.
And so while I completely agree that she dodged a bullet, I think they both are bullets that again, and this is what I said in that text string is they were both bullets that I'm happy I didn't have to dodge.
Right. I mean, but I think I would venture to guess that there are other responses that he could have responded with, even, okay, I voted for Donald Trump, that she would have been like, ooh, okay, well, let's talk about that. Like, the opportunity could have been presented. And to me, it kind of seems like a little bit of a test, her testing him. And she's like, okay, you failed the test. And then he further proved to fail the test in a blazing flame of glory. I just couldn't quite wrap my head around, like I said, we talk on this podcast about having respectful disagreement. I think that there was an opportunity here for both of them to say, hey, we don't agree on this, but here's where I stand and here's why this is important to me, and to find that common ground and to find what they do agree on and what they don't and why specifically they felt that way. And I think that both of them did the other one and themselves a disservice by shutting down. He just shut down more vocally.
Well, he shut down and he became abusive, and so that's not really kosher. And bless her heart, I'm glad that she left and didn't take that. I mean, I hope she didn't, and I hope she didn't get upset about that. But I mean, I feel like they were both wrong.
She posted it on the internet. I don't think she's that upset about it.
Oh, she posted it?
Yes.
But it's our example. If we cannot have conversations about somebody that we don't even know, I mean,
here's where I struggle with the message from her. I don't understand how you can take, I didn't vote for either one of them, I voted for my dog, as you don't value me as a person. You don't value.
Oh, I 100% understand exactly where she's coming from.
Well, see, I don't. I think he was trying to be funny to de-escalate something. So tell me why you see that as a personal offense.
This is a joke to you.
I
have so much at stake right now, and you're making a mockery of it. You think it's a joke.
But-
You're not definitive in who you voted for. So there's some hesitation there that, you didn't vote the way that I was hoping you would.
But holy cow, Callie, if somebody asked me that if I was on a dating app and somebody asked me that, I'm not sure I'd answer.
Not how I want to start a relationship.
No.
Sure, fine. But there are other answers that you could have said that would have maintained the respect for the tradition that is voting.
Maybe he wasn't trying to be disrespectful. Maybe he really was trying to be funny. That's how I took it, is that he's just being funny.
Which, again, I totally get. And had he proceeded with, this is why I think it was funny and why I made the joke, defended the joke, he could have.
Yeah,
but he didn't.
But he didn't.
He went off the ledge and started calling her all of these names and became abusive.
I'm so thankful I'm not dating these days.
Oh, goodness. Yes.
Same.
Ugh. Okay. Are we done?
Is your skin officially crawling now?
Yeah. But here again is my takeaway. I'm going to be careful about the words that I use. And as we've talked about this, I've realized there are many more words that I need to be careful about how I use them. From defining a person by one thing. Callie, you talked one time about somebody told you that if you walk into a party, you are not required to introduce that person by their job.
Yes.
You could introduce that person by the things that you love about them. And yes. I think we need to take that and spread that a little bit further. I think that's kind of where we need to go. So without putting my head in the sand, I think that I'm going to try to eliminate some of these words, and definitely also when they are used around me, try to say, explain, tell me what you mean, because I feel like I have the slightest little bit more understanding of where the words came from and how they've changed. And that's the big thing to me. They've made a 180-degree change on some of these words. So I think that's part of it. And as hard as these have been, and some of these have been difficult to ask my friends to explain where they're sitting. Why are you here? Why do you believe this? And where do you think this is going to take us? And I would say consistently, I feel like I'm finding that there is definitely a contingent out there that is worried about where this is taking us. And then there's the other side that I feel like is waiting passively because they believe something great is going to happen. And while I'm not on that side, and I'm certainly not a good passive waiter on top of that, but I'm going to keep asking for more information there to see if we can't. And maybe it's one person at a time, and maybe that's not enough. Maybe if we get farther here, and I tell two friends and they tell two friends, that becomes something more significant.
I think that kind of train of thought is a perfect lead-in to our weird thought, and I want to expand on our weird thought a little bit. But what we have this week is the term epistemicide, which is the killing of knowledge, the strategic annihilation of things that are known. And traditionally, we think about this as like censorship, of preventing ideas from getting out, of banning books, of things like that, banning books, burning books, reducing the amount of information that is available to try and steer public sentiment in a particular direction. I think that we have gone almost too far in the opposite direction, where there is such a flood of information and opinion and facts that are correct and facts that are incorrect. And there are so many voices talking to us all of the time that we are systemically annihilating knowledge by diluting it.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. Say the word.
Epistemicide.
Epistemicide.
The killing of knowledge. Wow.
And I don't know that all of it is intentional and systematic. I think some of it may be on accident at this point. And I think that the internet is a big factor there.
Oh, yeah.
Because there is just so much bullshit out there that is not real. And this maybe is a realization that I'm just now developing the ability to articulate, but I think that is intentionally being exacerbated by the political landscape in our country. And I think that it is intentional to have these two such polarized platforms, if you will, that there's no room for middle ground. So you have to pick one or the other. And I think they're both lunacy.
We talk about in our household on occasion about raccooning ourselves. And so there's the story of the raccoon sticking his paw into a jar to grab whatever is in the jar. And he grabs it inside of the jar and he goes to pull it out. But the mouth of the jar is too tight that he can't pull his full closed fist out. All he has to do is dump it out, but he wants to have it and wants to hold it in his hand. And I feel like we have, as a society, we are raccooning ourselves. I've latched on to this one piece so hard and so tightly that I am unwilling to let it go to get the full prize, to get everything else, because I'm prioritizing this one piece, and we're missing out on so much because we've raccooned ourselves into thinking this is the most important piece. The internet is a scary, dangerous, vicious, exciting, thrilling, wonderful place.
It certainly can be all of those. All right. I'm ready for a happy story, a good news story.
Our wolves are back. I don't know if that's really that great of news. I think it's really cool to have giant wolves, but I think wolves are cool. So big wolves, bigger's better, right?
No, give me the story.
So the story is that scientists have essentially through genetic modification recreated an ancient species that went extinct about 13,000 years ago. Some people are really for it and some people are really against it. I think that there are some benefits to genetic modification, but I also think that it's an incredibly slippery slope, that it could become really bad really fast. But I also do think that bringing back something that used to exist naturally and was part of our ecosystem, I think that generally speaking, that's up to a point has the potential to be a good thing. In this case, I think it's probably okay. Am I advocating for bringing T-Rexes back? Probably not. And is there a potential for a direwolf population to get out of hand? Absolutely. But I also think that it's kind of cool that we have the ability to do that.
What is a dire wolf? And I mean, what's the difference between a wolf that I would know and a dire wolf? Are they bigger?
Yeah, they're much bigger.
Like elephant bigger or
no,
mastiff bigger?
Like, let's see.
I know that the puppies were dang cute. They just look like little labs.
So this shows that they're like 3 times the size of a husky dog. So standing up to a 6 foot tall human, which is essentially me, their head is going to be about the middle of my
mastiff size.
Yeah, they're about the size of a tiger.
And where do they live?
Native to the Americas.
Yeah.
Really? And do we know what made them go extinct?
Climate change, competition with other species, including overpopulation by newly arrived human hunters, or a combination of both.
Gotcha. So where are they going to release these dogs? Do you know? Well, I know Cole's been very excited about the dire wolves coming back. I think that's cool.
I don't see anywhere where it talks about them being released.
I can't imagine that they would be released.
You've got to put them back into the wild.
Why?
Have you not seen Jurassic Park?
Okay. Well, children of mine, this is not our funnest conversation. This one was a little bit hard, and
we can do hard things.
We can do hard things. We can do hard things. but I am forever grateful that when we hurt each other's feelings or we disagree, that we can still come to the table and still have a conversation and still love each other.
I was just going to say, I just want to thank the two of you for taking the time to prioritize working through these things and having hard conversations and making that important to you too. Love you guys.
Love you too.
Love you too.